everybody, it's jrobichess. We're going to be taking a look at Canada's Chess 2014 Day 5. The day was a series of draws for the most part, and some of them were, pretty interesting to look at. So I recommend you check the official tournament site, play through the games to check them out. In this video, we'll be covering today's only win in which Mr. Svidler playing the white pieces took on Mr. Topalov playing the black pieces. Once again, we had some interesting moves played by both players, but even with some questionable moves, it was an exciting game leading up to an unfortunate blunder that settled the matter over the board. I want to look at this game from the black perspective today to cover some interesting points, so let's get started here. The game opens up with pawn to e4, and we actually get into a Ruy Lopez opening here, which is awesome. I'm going to flip through the first few moves here until the action starts, right to about here. Yeah, there we go. And I wanted to stop and talk about the question of, should I take or should I look for something better? And quite often, even in my own chess learning, the instinct when I first started and even well into my 1500s is just to take what your opponent offers up. This unfortunately is not a good way to play, because if you take what they offer all the time, you are always playing to their plan. So if there's a big point in this video today, always look for something better. And that can be taken if necessary, of course. Sometimes you don't have a choice. Or it can be counterattacking and making your opponent make a decision instead based off of something that you've come up with, the plan you've devised. So let's see how the action takes place here and how that relates to this question with Mr. Svidler and Mr. Topalov. So Mr. Svidler has just thrust his d-pawn up to d4, attacking the dark square bishop. Now, a lot of new chess players and people learning the game might be like, oh my gosh, my piece is getting attacked, I better do something, maybe I should take that pawn. Well, look what happens here. That's not good, right? We're just giving white a really strong center in the process. So obviously white would love for us to do something like that. So that's not a good idea. So how about this? Mr. Topalov just takes now on e4, says, okay, you're attacking my dark square bishop, I'm going to attack your knight. What are you going to do about that? From here, the game progresses now. White captures now on e5. So if we just go back a move, I know I've got a lot of pictures there. Here's the pawn here, takes a pawn. So now he's saying, okay, well, I'm attacking your knight too. So we've got a pawn attacking Svidler's knight. We've got a pawn attacking Topalov's knight. We also have an open queen file here. Well, the first move Topalov plays is, instead of worrying about any of these knights, he just takes the queen now. Once the queen is recaptured, now Topalov comes in and takes the knight on f3, and Mr. Svidler takes the knight now on f6. And interestingly enough, there was I'm just going to flip through the next few moves here. This is what it ended up looking like after these series of exchanges here. And, black's got doubled pawns. It's not going to be a huge, oops, I went one too far. It's not going to be a huge liability as the game progresses. Obviously, you want to try to avoid double pawns if you can. But if it's not going to seriously hurt your position, it's okay. But this didn't actually have to happen. If we go back, let's see here now. If I go back to after the capture here, right here. Yeah. So Mr. Topalov also had an opportunity to do something a little bit different here. He could have played, where did it go here? No, before the knight capture. Sorry, I'm just working with my notes here. So after the rook takes queen, Mr. Topalov also had an option of playing bishop takes on f2 with check. Now, if that doesn't totally mess everything up here for planning, I don't know what would. And the positional strength that results from this, if we just flip through a couple of logical looking moves, is we get into a position, there's a nice fork of the king and the rook, where the positional strength is relatively the same as what resulted in the game, but we don't have doubled up pawns here. So it was an interesting line that I saw when I was analyzing the game that I thought looked, it was something worth mentioning, because it tied into the whole point that I'm talking about of, should you immediately take or look for the captures that are the most obvious, or should you look for something a little bit different? Now, even if after bishop takes, let's say the king does not go to f1 and instead takes the dark square bishop, well, it just results in a position like this. So once again, we have a white king exposed. We have our pawns on the h, g, and f, totally together, totally fine. And it's a decent position. I think actually black's even up a pawn in this position. So a move like bishop takes, if you analyze it in your games while you're playing, it might work out actually pretty interestingly for you, and it might help you push towards your plan. But nonetheless, that wasn't played in the game, and that's fine. What was played in the game worked out well also. Another thing that I found interesting from this position here is that Mr. Svidler found the strongest move, bishop to e4, and did not take that pawn on f3. Now, if we go back a move, one of the first instincts of beginning chess players, even myself when I started, and even maybe even now, like, I mean, I don't know, I got to continue my rated game library here and get to showing you guys my progression and things that I'm learning, but might have been just, an instinct to just take here. Well, unfortunately, that basic instinct leads to a world of hurt as black just seizes the momentum here, and look at that position that results from there. So just taking the pawn obviously wasn't a good move. However, Mr. Svidler found the strongest move, which is bishop to e4. And this pawn here on f3 is going to be there for quite a while. Black is still up a pawn in this position, but it's not going to be a huge liability to Mr. Svidler as the game progresses. So let's continue on here. I'm just going to flip through the next few moves. I want to keep the video relatively short here. So we've got some jockeying around. Mr. Svidler's playing quite well, so was Mr. Topalov here. And we get to this position, and bishop captures knight on a3. Now, in the game, Mr. Svidler recaptured the knight on a3 with his pawn. Let's go back a move, though. Go ahead and pause the video and look for something better. Try to find something better in this position that you can do before you take that bishop on a3. Okay, so I'm just going to show you what it is now. Hopefully you've paused the video by now. But take a look at this. Bishop takes pawn on h7. Now what are we doing? Well, we're telling black basically that, yeah, you've just taken my knight, but I can take your rook. So, black obviously does not want to lose a rook in this position, so you could see a move like rook over to h8 attacking the light square bishop. But what do we have here? Well, we just have a nice little check. So the king has to move, and now we take the bishop on a3, and we've got that pawn back. So it was an interesting option. Now, Mr. Svidler didn't play that. Mr. Svidler decided to take the pawn first. So, it could have been a little bit of an inaccuracy on his part. Maybe he just didn't see that at the board at the time. But I thought it was definitely worth mentioning considering what we've been talking about. So anyway, play continued now. I'm just going to continue flipping through some moves. Positional jockeying around here by the players, and we get to this point here. Now we just had a bishop check here on e4, and this is unfortunately Topalov's first of a few mistakes here. Mr. Topalov elected to play king to a6, and in the process he lit that rook up on d4 like you wouldn't believe. Now that rook can come down, it can get behind that king, it can contribute to an attack on that king. We've got these beautiful bishops here on e3 and e4, and this is just not going to work out very well for black in the position. And we'll see that as the game progresses. But if we go back a move, this move would have stopped all of that. King to c8. Now this rook, not as scary. Okay, so like play could have followed check here. King goes back to b7. The rook does try to come down in this position, but now we have a pawn capture here on g4, recapture, and now the light square bishop gets into the action, comes down now to c4, and black is going to be able to hold its own from this point. Unfortunately, however, that wasn't played by Mr. Topalov. He did elect to play king to a6, and now we get into a series of moves, and you're going to see this rook come down like a champ, and it's just going to start tearing into the position. These bishops are going to be working and coordinating with the rook to launch an attack against the black position, and it's just not pretty. Material starts to drop off the board. We have a series of moves here with the rooks, and I'm just flipping through these moves because we're going to get to the last major blunder of Mr. Topalov here when we get to this position right here. So what happened was Mr. Svidler brought the rook down to back to d4, offering up the rook trade. In this position, the best move for black is just to take that rook off and deal with this, which could result into a position where you get to something like this. And it's not super clear what's going to go on here. Obviously, white's probably going to win the game from this point with that huge pawn majority. you know, it wasn't really a good move either way, I guess, for him is what can be said. But Mr. Topalov decided to take the pawn here on c3 instead. And unfortunately, this was an even worse mistake because after here, his pawn that just got pushed to h6 is going to be monstrous. And there's a reason why the title of this video is titled the way it is, because a lot of times in this game we see beautiful coordination of rooks and bishops. And we're going to see a very, very nice little move here coming up from Mr. Svidler. So we get to this position here. Mr. Topalov tries to play king up to f7 to stop this king. Now watch this move right here. Beautiful. Look at that. Bishop to d8, completely cutting that rook off of any type of hopes of protecting the h8 square for promotion. And the coordination of the rooks and bishops in this game were beautiful. So this is actually where the game ended. From here, there are no good moves for black. For example, if it tries king to g6, well, we just promote, and it's not pretty there. If he tries something like rook to c4, it's still not pretty. There is no pretty positions for black here at all. And if the game were to progress, well, what happens is we still get a promotion and black just has to delay the inevitable checkmate. So it was a really interesting game. I really enjoyed going over it, and I hope that you found some use from what I was talking about for you know, not just taking right away, but actually looking for something else, something better in the position before you go ahead and take that capture. So take care. Hope you enjoy the video, and we will see you next time.